Resourceful Designer, episode 187, Choosing a Name for Your Design Business.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now, your host. He actually caught a boot while fishing once. Mark Decote.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. In this week's episode, I'm going to talk about the importance of choosing the right name for your design business. I'm also going to share two separate tips, one that can save you a huge potential headache right now, and one that could save you money in the future. Before ending the episode with a question from Pauline about pricing strategies when you're just starting out. So what have I been up to this past week? I completed a couple of podcast artworks. On an interesting coincidence, I've been hired by two separate sports teams to design logos for their jerseys. This is something I haven't done in quite a long time, but I have a local volleyball team that wants me to design a logo for their jersey. It's more the warm-up logo. They have the team logo already, which is going to go on the front of the jersey, but they want a special logo designed for the back of the jersey, and then I'll take care of ordering those. And there's a hockey team, a minor hockey team in Ottawa that is forming, and they've hired me to design the logo for the team and to source out crests to put on the jerseys they have. So that's kind of fun. I've done jerseys before, or logos for sports teams before, but I haven't done any in a while, and twice in 1 week I get contacted for this. So that was kind of cool. And I encountered a little situation I've never seen before. I was hired to take over management of a website for a client. For now, I'm just going to manage their website, meaning run it through my maintenance program, in anticipation of building them a new site come the new year. But this website I'm taking over actually has the main domain, and then there's a special subdomain that is a completely different website. It's more for like a members-only section, but I've never encountered this before, where the main site is hosted with one web host, and what I call the subdomain is actually hosted at a completely different web host. Now, it turns out it's not really a subdomain. She actually registered a completely separate domain for her name.domain.com and has that on a separate site. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I've never seen that before. But the whole thing's kind of moot since I'm moving the one site over to the other hosting. I want both sites hosted on the same provider. And in that process, I will be turning that quote-unquote subdomain site into an actual subdomain of the main domain. That'll be kind of fun. I'm currently in the process of setting everything up to move. Normally, it would be a really easy process. I would just install Backup Buddy on the website, create a backup of it, and upload the backup to the new web host, and away we go. Redirected domain and everything be done. But the current web host that she's using, this client of mine, it has a lot of limitations, and one of the things is Backup Buddy won't work on that website. So I'm going to have to do the migration manually. I've done it before. It's so easy with Backup Buddy for my themes. And although it's not something I've been up to, I am really looking forward to this weekend. I'm going to fool around with the new Divi 4.0 that was just released. Elegant Themes had this huge announcement, and 4.0, in case you're not aware, Divi has always been a page builder. Well, with 4.0, it becomes a theme builder, meaning it opens up so many doors for the minor restrictions. I love Divi. If you've been listening to me for a while, you know that that's all I use is Divi to build my websites. I did test Elementor a little bit, but I just know Divi so well. Well, this new theme builder in 4.0 will give us even more control, including full creative access to the headers and footers, which is one thing that Divi was lacking before. So I'm really looking forward to kicking the tires on that. Now, if you're interested in acquiring or just learning more about the new Divi 4.0, visit resourcefuldesigner.com/Divi4, and I'll redirect you to the page that shows all the new features available. And as a bonus, they're offering a 10% discount on your purchase at the time that I'm releasing this episode. So once again, that link, and that is my affiliate link, is resourcefuldesigner.com/Divi4. So that's what I've been up to. Now, as I mentioned, I have two tips to share with you this week, but before I get to them, I just want to remind you about the Resourceful Designer community. The community is a paid membership of designers that are dedicated to running and growing their design business. This past week, we had our monthly video chat. This time around, we talked about working with virtual assistants and working with contractors, where to find them, how to vet them, how to make sure you're choosing the right one, and what sort of tasks to assign them. And that's just one of the perks of being in the community is these monthly video chats. Now, everything takes place in the Slack group, and every day there are conversations going around, people asking questions, asking opinions, sharing stories, advice, resources, you name it. So if you are serious about starting, growing, and running your design business, then maybe you should check out the Resourceful Designer community at resourcefuldesigner.com/community. And now this week's, tips of the week. Now, I want to thank Laura for sharing this first bit of information with me. And the first tip is, if you are using Adobe CS6, if you have not upgraded to Creative Cloud, if you're still relying on the Adobe CS6 programs, be warned, they will no longer work after you upgrade your Mac to Mac OS Catalina. So if you are on a Mac and you are still using CS6, do not upgrade to Catalina, because the CS6 versions of the Adobe programs will no longer work in Catalina. So either stick to your current system or upgrade as high as Mojave, or you're going to have to upgrade to Creative Cloud. So that is more of a public service announcement. But once again, I want to thank Laura for bringing this to my attention. It's a very good tip that I'm sure many of the Resourceful Designer listeners who are still on Adobe CS6 may not be aware of. Now, the other tip of the week has to do with big sales and stuff that are regularly scheduled throughout the year. The reason I'm bringing this up is because in about a month's time will be Black Friday, Cyber Monday, at least in the US. Here in Canada, for some reason, we honor those as well. So we have big sales in Canada too around the American Thanksgiving, which is kind of weird. We just celebrated our Thanksgiving here and we don't have big sales around our Thanksgiving, but we'll hold the sales around the American Thanksgiving. What usually happens is come Black Friday, there's all sorts of great deals to be had. And every year I kick myself because the week following, I think or I hear about something or I remember something that I needed and I didn't get it when it was on sale. So the tip this week, and it's something I'm doing, is I've already created a list of everything that I want to look at during the Black Friday sales. And this works again, maybe during the Christmas holidays or in the US President's Day or whatever, Amazon Prime Day, any time of the year that you know there's a sale coming up, start your list early. It's kind of like when you're a kid and you make your Christmas list for Santa Claus, if you're into that sort of thing. So I started a list several weeks ago, and anytime I think about something or I hear about something that I may be interested in, I add it to the list to look into. Because in some cases, maybe I don't want to spend $100 on something. But if they have it at 60, 70% off, I may be willing to spend $30 on it. So don't wait till the sale gets here and then try to figure out what you need to get. Start your list now so when the time comes, you're prepared. You already know beforehand. You can budget for the stuff you want to spend, especially if there's a lot of it. And you're not left feeling some sort of regret after the sale is over that you completely forgot about something. So those are this week's tips of the week. And now, choosing a name for your design business. Let me ask you a question. How much difficulty did you have in choosing a name for your design business? Did you know from day one what you were going to name your business? Or did you rack your brain thinking up and discarding dozens and dozens of names before finally settling on the name for your business? Or maybe you haven't even started your business yet and you're still going through this process. Or you're just starting and trying to think up a name. Well, let me tell you, one of the hardest decisions entrepreneurs face is what to call their business. Now, I did talk about naming your graphic design business way back in episode 41 of the podcast. In that episode, I talked a lot about the pros and cons of using your own name as opposed to creating a unique name for your business. For example, I didn't call myself Mark Decote Designs. That would have been using my own name. I chose to call my business Marksman Design, a unique name. So consider today's episode kind of a part 2 to that one. So if you haven't listened to episode 41 yet, or you don't remember it, and considering it was published back in 2016, I'll forgive you if you don't remember what I said in it, I suggest you go back and listen to that one first, and then continue with this one. And of course, you can find that episode at resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 41. But why is the name you choose for your design business so important? It's important because word of mouth is and always will be a design company's most lucrative avenue for acquiring new clients. Ask any home-based designer or freelance designer, and they'll tell you that the bulk of their work comes from word of mouth referrals. Look at me, for example. 14 years in business, and I've never had a website for my business. And yet I am constantly busy. And I'd say 90% of my work, my new clients that come in, are all word of mouth referrals. And because of that, because of people spreading the word about your business, choosing a good name, a memorable name, could help propel your company by making it easier for your clients to spread the word about your services. Whereas if you choose a poor, perhaps hard to remember name, you could impede your company's growth. Imagine somebody who's talking to a friend and asks, "Do you know where I can get a website made?" And the friend replies, "Yes, I heard about this one place called the Web Design Studio. Maybe you can check them out." "Gee, thanks. That sounds great." Or, "Do you know where I can get a website made?" "Yeah, there's this place called Stellarific Web Design, or maybe it was Synergific Web Design. Stunning. I don't know. It started with an S and it had ific at the end, but that's all I can remember. Sorry." "Well, okay. Well, thanks. That wasn't much help." You see, your business name matters. But how do you go about choosing a name for your business? Well, you're a designer, aren't you? So why don't you start with something you're familiar with, the way you work for design? Chances are, every design project you start on begins with some sort of design brief. It might be a multi-page document with detailed analysis of what the design project needs to accomplish, blah, blah, blah. Or it might just be a 5-minute conversation with a client who briefly explains what they're looking for. Either way, every design project you start has some sort of brief for you to work off of in order to create your designs. Why not do the same thing when you're choosing your business name? Create a naming brief. Ask yourself some standard brief questions that will help guide you in choosing a name. Like 1, who is your target audience? If you are planning on niching, if you're going to target a certain niche in the design space, it might make sense to choose a name for your business that fits well within that niche. If you're targeting small to medium-sized law offices as clients, then maybe a name such as Rock On Designs may not be suitable. However, if your target market is people in the music industries, then Rock On Designs may be perfect. So if you plan on targeting a specific niche, you may want to consider a name that suits that niche. Take Craig Burton, for example. I interviewed him back in episode 174 of the podcast. His design company is called School Branding Matters. Can you guess what his target market is? That's the power of choosing a niche and choosing a great name for your business that fits that niche. Now, if you want to know more about niches, go back and listen to both episodes 54 and 93 of the podcast, where I do a deep dive into niching. Now, continuing on your naming brief, question number 2 to ask yourself, do you want a descriptive name, something with meaning like Reliable Design Services? Or do you want something more abstract like Peacock Creative Agency? That's something to consider. Question number 3. Do you want to use real words like Solid Core Creative? Or do you want to create a new word like Ryjo Design Services? Now, keep in mind what I said earlier about word of mouth marketing being a key source for new clients. If you create new words, make sure that the new words you create are short, they're easy to remember, and easy to pronounce. And be very careful of this fad of dropping vowels in words. It may be cute and the in thing right now, but it can also get very confusing. I mean, how many times do you think Chris Do had to say, "That's future" without an E at the end? I'm sure that can become tedious very fast. And by the way, Ryjo Design Services was actually one of the names I considered for my own business. It's actually based off my kids' names. My son's name is Ryan. My daughter's name is Joelle. Hence, Ryjo Design Services. Now, in the end, I decided to go with a real word and settled on marksman design because, other than myself, Ryjo has no meaning to anyone. So why make it more confusing for people for no reason? Now, in the end, there are no right or wrong names for your business. Names are subjective, just like designs are. What one person likes, another won't. So you need to make sure you choose a name that feels right for you and for the target market you're going after. So what are some criteria for determining if a name is effective or not? Well, what you could do is try a little scale here, a scoring method with potential names. So you come up with a list of names. Well, try scaling them on a 1 to 5 on the following criteria. And then at the end, add up the scores, and the name that comes up with the highest total, the highest points, will probably be the best fit for you and your business. The 6 criteria that I've come up with here are: how distinctive is the name? For example, Joe's Design Studio, not really that distinctive. I mean, there could be Jen's Design Studio, John's Design Studio, Jarl's Design Studio. It's just another name with Design Studio on it, so it's not that distinctive. Whereas Joe's Emporium of Creativity, that is definitely distinctive. So score it 1 to 5. How distinctive is the name? Second criteria, emotional impact. What impression does the name give to a client? What sort of emotions does it impact? Mike, a member of the Resourceful Designer community, his business is called Mass Appeal Agency. Mass Appeal. Nowhere does it say design or creative or anything like that. He has agency in there, but Mass Appeal, think of that name. That creates an emotional impact to people. When somebody's thinking about design, wouldn't they want a great design that appeals to the masses? So Mike chooses right in his name something that creates an emotional impact with his clients. Criteria number 3, clarity. How well does your name say what you do? Sure, Joe's Design Studio is not very distinctive, but it's very clear at what it is. It's Joe's Design Studio. Where in a case with Mike, with Mass Appeal Agency, it's not as clear what he does. I mean, the word agency does help, but maybe it's a talent agency or a modeling agency. Who knows? So clarity is another one to rank on. The next criteria is pronounceability. When I was coming up with names for my business, a lot of people said, why don't you just use your name? Well, the reason I don't use my name is because my last name, Decote, 90% of the people out there, when they read it, don't know how to pronounce it. There's probably been dozens and dozens of different pronunciations I've heard over the years of that name, and rarely do people actually get it right. And that's one reason why I didn't use it. So make sure whatever name you have, if you have a personal name, your name is something that a lot of people have trouble with, then maybe you don't want to call your business that, because one criteria of a good name is that it's easily pronounceable. Now, the next criteria is memorability. How memorable is your name? Mass appeal. It's pretty easy to remember. But then again, so's Joe's Design Studio. What's that one I tried at the beginning in that sample I gave you? I think it was Stellarific, maybe? I don't know. Even now, it's only been a few minutes and I can't even remember what I said. So that name is not very memorable. And the final criteria to judge your name on is it trademarkable? Now, that may not be important to you right now, but who knows down the road? If you grow and your little one-man shop working out of your home suddenly grows to become this multi-person agency, maybe at some point you're going to want to trademark your name. Well, chances are Joe's Design Studio won't be trademarkable, but something like Mass Appeal Agency could be. So think about that. So use those 6 criteria. Is the name distinctive? Does it create an emotional impact? How clear is the name? How easy is it to pronounce? Is it memorable? And can you trademark it? And score them on a scale from 1 to 5 for each one of those. And then at the end, you look at your names and you say, okay, well, this one scored whatever, an 18. This one scored a 23. This one scored a 28. Well, maybe the one that scored a 28 might be the best choice for you to use as a name. And then finally, once you've narrowed down to a couple of names that you really like, or maybe it's that one name, you've settled and it's like, that's the name for me. So once you've come up with a single or a solid list of potential names, it's time to start doing research. You see, the problem with coming up with the perfect name for your design business is if the name is that great, chances are somebody else thought of it before you. Maybe you're thinking of dynamic designs. Wow, I love the sound of that. It rolls off the tongue really well. Well, I can guarantee you that there's a lot of other designers out there that thought of the name Dynamic Designs before you did. So before you get too far and too excited about the name that you want, do some simple searches to see if the name you like is already in use. I mean, start off just Googling the name and see what comes up. And make sure whenever you do your search broadly enough. Maybe you don't find another graphic or web designer around with the name you like, but what about interior designers, fashion designers, or even cake designers? They may have chosen the name for themselves, and you don't want to get in trouble with a cupcake maven for infringing on her trademarked name. So start covering your bases with a simple Google search. Now, if you're in the USA, you can try searching through the US Patent and Trademark website. Now, I've used this website on a number of occasions for different things, and I can tell you the website's a little clunky. It's not the easiest website to use, but it is a good place to see where else the name you like is being used and if it may cause you a problem in the future. Now, remember that companies in different industries can have the same name. Mike may have a legal case against another web or design company that tries to use the name Mass Appeal because it could cause confusion between their company and his. But if, let's say, a company that, I don't know, they install swimming pools and they call themselves Mass Appeal, there's really nothing Mike can do about that because there's no way to mistake the two companies. Mike provides web and design services. This other company installs swimming pools. They're in two completely different industries, so they are allowed to use the same name. Now, you have to be smart here. Just because they're in different industries doesn't mean anything. Like, I'm sure some fashion designer who creates soft clothing is not going to call their business Microsoft, thinking, oh, well, we're in a completely different industry. That would be crazy. But in most cases, if they're different industries, then you are okay to use the name. Now, in some cases, there may be another design company with the same name as you, but that doesn't necessarily mean you can't use it as well. It all depends on where they registered the name. When I started Marksman Design, I knew that there was already a Marksman Design in the US, as well as a Marksman Design in the United Kingdom. But I was safe to register the name here in Canada, where I'm based, because there was no Marksman Design in Canada, and that's where my company is registered. Now, there are plenty of other online resources that can help you determine if you can legally register a business name in your area. I suggest you contact your local business resource center. Usually they're part of your municipal government. Contact them and ask for their help. They'll be glad to lend their assistance. But regardless of what you find out on your own, I highly suggest you get a lawyer involved when it comes time to actually register your business name. It is good for you to do your own research, but a lawyer, somebody who's familiar with registering businesses, they'll have many, many more resources available to them to make sure the job is done correctly. So hire a lawyer to vet your name before you spend money trying to register it yourself. That could be money very, very well spent. Now, another thing to think of is not to make your name too simple. In other words, watch out for naming your business with popular keywords. Obviously, this wasn't an issue when I registered my business 14 years ago. Keywords weren't that big a thing back then. But nowadays, you have to be really careful. Earlier in this episode, I used an example of a web design business called The Web Design Studio. Sounds like an amazing name for very descriptive. It tells exactly what you do. But in reality, The Web Design Studio is not a very good name for a business because it'll be almost impossible to rank for it in the search engines. Before recording, I did a test. I did a Google search for The Web Design Studio, and I came up with 3.84 billion, that's billion with a B, results. Good luck ranking your web design business that's named The Web Design Studio. So be careful of naming your business with popular search terms. So what does it all come down to? Well, the name you give your design business will be one of the most important touch points for anyone that encounters your business. Logos and branding, all of that can be updated and changed fairly easily, but not so much with a name. Changing a business name may require closing out a business and starting up a new one, getting lawyers involved, and lots of fees. So do your due diligence beforehand and make sure you choose the right name for your business. But do keep in mind that your business name, although it's important, it is only one facet of your business. A great business name won't guarantee success for you, just like a less than ideal business name doesn't ensure failure for your business. So it's up to you to ensure that the business that you are running, that it creates a strong foundation and offers exceptional services, something that your business name, whatever you choose, can live up to. So as long as you choose a name that reflects your brand well and represents your values, you should be good. Now, I would love to know, how hard was it for you to come up with a name for your design business? Please leave me a comment for this episode at resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 187. And now the question of the week. Now, I answered one of Pauline's questions last week, but she had actually submitted two. So this is the second question she had asked me. And her question is, when you're brand new in business, should you price a little lower at first, or are you storing up trouble for later? Well, thank you very much for the question, Pauline. And there's really two parts to my answer here. First of all, when you say price a little lower at first, if you mean offering discounts and stuff like that, I don't believe in that. I think when you're starting off, you should stick to your guns. This is what you're worth, and that's what you expect to be paid. So offering discounts to get jobs, not to a client that is coming to you. Now, in some cases, you may want to offer a discount. Like if you're approaching somebody and saying, I'd like to do this for you and I'm willing to do it at this price because I'm just starting out and this is a one-time offer, then maybe you can do that. I've actually offered free works. That's how I got into the podcasting thing. Is I knew a few podcasters and I saw their artwork and I decided to send them. I did free artwork for them and said, here, you can use this if you want. The only thing I asked for in return is if you do use it, let people know who did it for you. But those were not people who came to me for work. They were just jobs I did and gave it to people that I knew could use it. And they were grateful. But really what I want to say when it comes to pricing, when you're just starting off, then pricing a little bit lower is natural, but not lower than what you're worth. So maybe, and again, this all depends on where you live. Maybe the going rate for design, if you're based on an hourly rate, maybe the going rate is $30 an hour. Or maybe it's $50 an hour, or maybe it's $80 an hour. Who knows? Price yourself in that range. If other designers in your area are charging $40 an hour, you're not going to want to charge $80 if you're just starting off and they are more experienced than you. If they're charging $40, then you go in and charge $35 maybe. Don't go like $20 or something like that. That would be ridiculous. That would be storing up trouble for later, as you put it. So yes, you can price yourself a little bit lower when you're starting off in order to get the ball rolling, but not lower than what you're actually worth. And if you're not sure what sort of prices people are charging in the area, I'll tell you what I did. I had a friend of mine reach out. He called a bunch of designers and just said, I've got this project I'd like to do. Can you give me a quote? How much do you charge by the hour and that sort of stuff? And the designers freely told him what they charge. And he created a list and then supplied me the list, said, here are the designers in the area. Here's what they charge. And then I based my price off of that. That's how I started off 14 years ago when I got into business. But it's very easy to find out what other designers are charging and price yourself accordingly. And yes, if you're just starting off, you can price a little bit lower, but not for long. Once you get things going, you establish yourself a little bit, then you can raise your price. And at any time, if you're starting to feel comfortable, raise your price. And the last thing I'm going to say, Pauline, is if you do lower your prices, make sure that you let your clients know that this is a special deal or a special price that you're giving them, because you don't want them to get used to that price and then say later on, hey, how come you're raising your prices? I thought this is what you charge. Let them know right from the start that this is a special price. Your prices will be higher, but for now, you are offering the service at this price. As long as they understand going in that your prices will be going up in the future, then they won't be surprised when it does happen. Anyways, I hope that answers your question, Pauline. Now, if you would like your question answered in a future episode of the podcast, please submit yours at resourcefuldesigner.com/feedback. So that's it for this episode. I want to thank you very much for sticking around as I discussed naming your graphic design business. Now, I want to remind you, if you are still using Adobe CS6, do not update to macOS Catalina. That's the new one that just came out. If so, you will have no choice but to upgrade to Creative Cloud because CS6 will no longer work. And remember, the Black Friday sales are coming up in just a month, so start your list now so you're not surprised or you don't miss out on something after the fact. And if you want to join a group of mentors to help you with your design business, or if you have something to share with other like-minded designers, then the Resourceful Designer community is for you. To learn more, visit resourcefuldesigner.com/community. So thank you very much. Until next time, I am Mark DeCote, wishing you all the best with your graphic design business. And as always, reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.